Good afternoon. Now that the beepstakes are over and the campaign is basically over, Trump's going to win, I have been noticing that the mainstream media seems to spout lies about candidates, and people believe them. They don't do their research. Let me just start off by saying, if Ron DeSantis had given speeches on the campaign trail like he gave at the RNC, this would be a whole different picture. But because he basically fell on his sword, my words, and, spread baseless lies about Nikki Haley, he didn't look well. He didn't manage his campaign well. Vivek, I initially liked him, but then when he started bashing Nikki Haley in the debates over personal issues, I had a problem with that. Ronald Reagan said, "Thou shalt not speak ill of a fellow Republican." So here we have Vivek saying several statements, one that is partially true, partially out of context. Let's start with Nikki Haley's job at Boeing. Yes, she had a job on the board at Boeing. I supported her because of her foreign policy experience, of how similar most of her ideas were to Donald Trump. And I'm not a never Trumper, have never been anti-Trump. I voted for him twice. It's just my personal opinion that it's going to take a Republican president 8 years to undo the damage that Joe Biden has done to our country in 3. So because of her foreign policy experience, because she was awesome at the UN, and I listened to her speeches, and I have followed her career since she first got elected governor in 2006. She was elected as a Tea Party candidate for governor. Now, she has some moderate views, but let me tell you, she supports building the wall. Her statement that was out of context in that regard was, she said, you can't just build the wall, you have to fix the broken immigration system too. She wants E-Verify to be law of the land. She wants boys out of girls' sports. She wants DEI out of the military. Her husband is in the military. And she has told first-hand accounts of how they're doing DEI classes in the military and teaching them to address their enemies by their proper pronouns. Hello. That's about as stupid as can be. You're going to address your enemy by their proper pronoun? And also, let's get back to her seat on the board of Boeing. Her entire career, she has been against corporate bailouts. She had a job on the board at Boeing. After 9 months, the CEO came to her and told her, "Yay, we're getting a corporate bailout." and was all excited about it. And she tendered her resignation and told him, I have been against corporate bailouts my entire career. I will not work for a company that receives a corporate bailout. And she quit. The media doesn't tell you that. The media tells you, oh, she's a Democrat because all these Democrat voters are supporting her. Well, newsflash, a candidate cannot control who wants to vote for them. It's their job to bring in as many votes as possible. Now, it's like, okay, so the other issue, back to the issue with Vivek. I like Vivek, I really do. But I think it shows his inexperience when he tells fellow Republicans on a debate stage that Nikki Haley is corrupt because she got a job on the board at Boeing, and that nobody that works on the board of a company should be president. Well, he owns two companies. Am I the only one that sees that? That he owns two companies? Yeah, I believe he sold the one pharmaceutical company, but still, he was the owner of a company, and he wanted to be president. So for him to sit there and say, well, because she was on the board of Boeing, she shouldn't be president. Well, let me list the benefits of someone like that being on the board and being, let's say, in a presidential cabinet. She knows firsthand from being on the board what Boeing can do, what they can't do, what they pay. Remember, she's an accountant. She is not a lawyer. She's an accountant. She can list off numbers in her head. Let's get to her foreign policy experience. She was one of the toughest UN ambassadors we have ever had in my memory. And she tells several stories about how she used a whiteboard and she had them list all the countries that get aid from us, and then list all the countries that say death to America. And it's her opinion, and I believe this is the correct opinion, that no country should get cash from us, period, for any reason. She goes further and she says that she gets into Ukraine. Now, I semi-support the war in Ukraine, and the reason I support it is because even though it's over there, we want it to stay over there. We don't want it to come here. I do not support boots on the ground. She does not support boots on the ground. She has said numerous times in the last 2 years that if they want to buy weapons from us, we should sell them what they need to win the war. If Biden had not put his nose in the negotiations at the beginning of the war would have been won, because they wanted F-16s, F-35s. They was willing to buy them, and Biden, through his utter incompetence, said, well, I don't want you to have airplanes. I don't want you to do this. I don't want you to do that. They're being bombed. Hello. They're being bombed. You know, The things that happened when Russia invaded are beyond atrocious. Like, the soldiers went in to households and assaulted the women, made the husbands watch, then drugged the husbands out in the street, tied their hands behind their back, after torturing them, then executed them. That's atrocious. That is not being talked about on the local news or any other news. It's being washed under the carpet. Sorry. It's, and then we have to look at some things that Nikki Haley said. Nikki Haley said, when dictators talk, we should listen, because they will tell you exactly what they're going to do. Vladimir Putin said, I'm taking Ukraine, and then Poland and the Baltics are next. So, we bail out of Ukraine. Here's what Putin would do. This is what he did in the country of Georgia. He wiped out the citizens. He took Russian citizens from Moscow and replaced the citizens of the country of Georgia, and then said, now they're a Russian country. Well, does anyone see a problem with that? Especially with the way that the Russian soldiers were going in and executing all the men and assaulting all the women and making them watch. I just find this atrocious. And the fact this is not being talked about on news stations as a reason why we should support them, to me, is also atrocious. Because they're saying, yes, 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 Ukraine, 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 but they're not telling you why. Now, I do not support boots on the ground. I believe that if they want to buy weapons, they should buy weapons. Mike Johnson made a deal with Ukraine for them to pay to build a missile factory in Arkansas, and that he would get to buy missiles from that factory. And it's not being talked about because everybody is so war weary, and I understand being war weary. I'm not pro-war, but I feel that if a country like Ukraine has been basically invaded by their neighbor, that we should help them. What Biden is doing is not helping them. He's giving them millions and millions and millions of dollars before it's needed. Like he's giving them money to rebuild buildings that are being friggin' leveled. You don't do that until after the war stops. And then you go through the UN. The UN has a program called USAID, and they go in and they replace buildings and upgrade the buildings and all of that after the war is over, by him giving them the money before the war starts. It's beyond stupid. And I think that there's two positions that would benefit our country and benefit the Trump administration, if they gave Nikki Haley either Secretary of State or Secretary of Defense. See, the reason why I say Secretary of State is a president usually gives Secretary of State to the person he considers their top rival in the next election, to keep them from being able to go out and campaign, because they're on the road 3 weeks out of the month. It's not like being at the UN and she can just pop in to DC whenever she wants. No, she's out going everywhere around the world for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks at a time. So she's not going to be here to run a campaign. And I just feel that we really need to heal our party. Our party has been getting smaller and smaller because we stupidly kick people out. You know, the time for getting rhinos out of the party is the primary. Well, the primary's over. So what you do, or should do, is take the remaining candidates, coalesce them together, and say, okay, this is our party. And you do the best you can. You know, here's an example I like to give. Okay, we take a blue state like California. We, as a party, have not really had a real big presence in California for decades. We get people like McCarthy, you know, Devin Nunes, he was good. A smattering of Congress people, but we don't go after the State House where they pass these stupid laws. You know, Elon Musk announced he was moving both of his companies out of California because they passed a stupid law that says that children are the property of the state and that the state has the right to educate the children however they see fit. At least that's the way I understood and read the law. That's crazy. And then I watched a guy on YouTube that's a California farmer, and he had been putting off buying a new truck. Well, in 2022, he found the truck of his dream. It's a Dodge Ram 5500, will pull 14,000 pounds and tow what he needs. He doesn't do it commercial. It's for his farm to move equipment and stuff. Well, in 2022, when he bought it, he had to get the smog check done. They told him to come back in a year. He went back in 2023, and it passed, and they told him to come back in a year. This year, there's a new law that says that if he wants to get plates on his pickup truck, then he has to have it smog tested 4 times a year, and that they will not allow him to put plates on it until it passes a smog test. And he showed them where that it's passed the smog test the year before, and they said, nope, the law has changed, the regulations have changed, and blah blah blah. And so now he is putting his farm up for sale, and he's going to move. And I see this happening all over the West Coast. People are fed up with the liberal nonsense. There's a whole section of the state, I believe it's Oregon, wants to secede and become Idaho because they disagree with the liberal policies. Their conservative views are never heard, and they're just beyond upset. So they said, well, we just want to go. Idaho said we can join them. Let us go do it. We'll put it on a ballot measure. So that's going to be on the ballot in November. Again, I am voting for Trump. I have never been against Trump. I have never been anti-Trump, ever. I voted for him in 2016. I voted for him in 2020. My issue is when you have a candidate that calls out another candidate, but they don't do it in the proper context. The other thing that turned me off with Vivek is he called Nikki Haley out through her daughter on the debate stage. He told her if she wanted to ban TikTok, she needed to control her own daughter because her daughter was on TikTok. That's outrageous. Was he trolling her daughter? How did he know what her daughter was doing on TikTok? Because he stated that Nikki needed to know the things that her daughter was doing on TikTok. Her daughter's an adult. And, her daughter was not part of her campaign. I firmly agree with the statement in politics, the children and the spouses are off limits. Now, like I said, I like Vivek, but this shows his, not weakness, his inexperience, that he didn't know that was not the thing to do, to go after another candidate's family. If you don't like another candidate, you go after them on their policy issues. You leave their families alone. So that's what I have for you today, guys. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll talk to you again. Hope you enjoyed this. Bye.